there. This is Miriam, holistic life coach and mind-body practitioner at Pain Outside the Box. And today I'd like to discuss a couple of non-painful symptoms that are also mind-body symptoms. So usually I discuss chronic pain, especially chronic pain in the muscles or nerves. But today I'd like to discuss a couple of other symptoms, mainly heart palpitations, panic attacks, as well as symptoms of exhaustion and fatigue that are sometimes experienced by people who have mind-body syndrome. So we don't know exactly why some people experience chronic pain due to their emotional distress, whereas some others experience fatigue or heart palpitations due to their emotional landscape. But what we know is that sometimes these symptoms substitute for one another, and some people are more prone to certain symptoms than others. What we also know is that chronic pain is usually a result of being stuck in fight or flight, which is being stuck in chronic stress, a chronic state of stress, whereas other symptoms like fatigue, especially, and extreme exhaustion are more related to the freeze state, okay? So when the nervous system is in freeze, it means that the person feels stuck and helpless to do anything. And this happens sometimes when one is extremely overwhelmed by life or life's problems, when one is unable to mobilize, to take action to solve a certain situation, okay? So it's kind of the opposite of being in fight or flight. It's when you feel so helpless that you're not even like doing anything. Instead, you feel extremely exhausted. You feel like hiding from the world. You just are tired all the time. So that's one distinction. But an individual can shift through these states. So an individual might be in fight or flight one day. He might have more muscle tension, more pain. And he might be in freeze the next day when he's gotten so overwhelmed of trying to solve his problems or issues that then the exhaustion takes over, right? Sometimes symptoms of exhaustion also take place after one has gone through a really stressful time, such as after a really busy period at work, after exam time, after a really distressing situation like an emergency in the family. When this is over, it is normal to shift to a different state, and it is normal to feel exhausted and tired for a while. The problem is always when these symptoms become chronic, when someone is experiencing tiredness or exhaustion or heart palpitations every day, and one is starting to get worried. So in this video, I only talk about mind-body symptoms. So I am assuming that this exhaustion, these heart palpitations, these hormonal symptoms are not a result of illness, okay, or are not a result of a virus. So obviously it's always a good idea to get tested to see whether there is something behind these symptoms that can be addressed from a biological perspective through medication, for example. But we find that a lot of people with chronic fatigue, a lot of people suffering from heart palpitations, tiredness, exhaustion, they typically don't find a reason behind why they're feeling this way. They typically do all the tests and they're told like everything is fine, everything's okay. And yet they do not feel okay at all. They're feeling tired all the time. Okay, their heart is beating fast. They wake up and yet all they can hear is their heart beating. So it's not a great state to be in, and because they've been told that biologically there's nothing wrong, they feel at a loss on what to do. They start associating being active with triggering the symptoms, because sometimes they feel worse after activity. And because they start to fear overdoing things, they start to get even more tired, okay, or even more stressed after being active, let's say after spending the day out or after going to work. So then they enter into this kind of loop of doing something, believing they've overdone it. And this belief, by the way, is played out sometimes unconsciously. You don't have to consciously think it. And then crashing the next day. Okay, so it's a negative pattern that one can enter into, especially with fatigue, that one spends, a busy day, maybe a good day, having fun, but then the next day, one is extremely fatigued and tired, and, that person will start believing that he or she can't ever be so active again, that, that his body has changed and he's no longer able to do all of that stuff that he was able to do before. And unfortunately, a lot of people stay stuck in that way until they're ready to change this belief. So how do you change all this? As I always say, it's always important to acknowledge the emotional stressors, the emotional events that has led to this state, right? Typically, these symptoms happen after a chronically stressful time, after a distressing event, after spending a long time feeling under threat, a long time feeling worried or stressed. And because of this, the nervous system doesn't regulate as it used to. So it's important to acknowledge this, because knowing that it's a nervous system problem, then that gives you hope, knowing also that the nervous system can be regulated. Okay, so it always starts with acknowledging one's stressors. Okay, and the second thing is also building a certain belief that your body is not broken after all, that this is just a response, and that if you work with your body, if you accept where you are, and if you learn certain techniques to calm down your response to the symptoms, then this can all start to change. One of the most important things is definitely to get rid of that idea that just because you're extra active, then you're going to be exhausted or fatigued the next day. That is absolutely not true. We are perfectly capable of being active, right? So unless there is a disease, an illness that's keeping our body weak, unless we are really ill, then our body is perfectly capable of handling certain activities, certain stressors, right? So it's important to start cultivating this belief so you don't end up going in for any activity already with that expectation and that fear of being tired afterwards, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And this is really normal. It happens all the time. And yes, our thoughts, our expectations, including unconscious ones that we've been programmed to have, they do affect our physical body, how we feel. So when you start to learn how mind-body syndrome works, you start to realize these beliefs. You start to notice these expectations you're having, and maybe telling yourself that, hey, you're going to be absolutely fine. This activity, that activity is perfectly safe to do. And if you are a little bit tired the next day or afterwards, you're able to accept, okay, this is how my body has learned to respond lately. It doesn't have to be like this forever. It can change. Maybe you go back to that activity. Maybe you do it for a shorter amount of time. You ease into it, especially with fatigue. It's very important to ease into activity, to start with the stuff that you really liked, with enjoyable, relaxing stuff, and then build up. And then you build up the confidence that your body can take more and more. So it's a balance between not shrinking away completely from activities that trigger the symptoms. By the way, this also applies with heart palpitations, if these are triggered under specific situations or after specific activities. So it's all about this balance between not shrinking away from activity, not feeding that belief that whatever activity, whatever you do is going to create these symptoms, and at the same time, not overdoing it to an extent that you overwhelm your brain and you give kind of your brain and body an excuse to create the symptoms. It's about building that confidence bit by bit. This is called graded exposure. It's something that I teach also in my pain-free breakthrough program. And it's a recommended standard treatment for chronic fatigue especially. Besides the graded exposure, there are also various tools such as meditation, somatic work that can help you get back into your body and can help you get more in tune with what's happening in your body so that you stop perceiving your body as your enemy, as a threat, so that you start to feel more grounded in your body rather than always feeling like you have to fight these symptoms. Like with any other symptom, being in a position of trying to fight them off, of trying to get rid of them, that in itself is a stress situation. That in itself is putting you in a state of fight or flight, or freeze sometimes when you're totally overwhelmed and at a loss of what to do. So one of the best mindsets to adopt is to get yourself into a position of being less resistant to these symptoms, more okay in your body. And this is where meditation, somatic experiencing, somatic work comes in, just to get you more okay with what's going on in your body, more friendly, let's say, with your body, more compassionate towards your body. And that in itself sends a signal to the brain that you can calm down, that there is no immediate danger, that things can be okay, that they will be okay. It helps you step out of that fight, flight, or freeze response. So doing these techniques regularly can really, really help overcome symptoms of chronic fatigue, and also especially heart palpitations or anxiety, because when we are in an anxious state, when our heart is beating fast, it's our brain perceiving a threat, our brain thinking that we are still somewhat in danger. So the danger can be anything. It could be the danger of uncertainty, financial instability, the danger of rejection, of having problems with others. All the life stressors, right, can be perceived as dangers by the brain. And simply recognizing that and reminding yourself that you can come back to the present moment, that you can accept your body as a friend rather than as your enemy, right, can already send the signal to your brain that things are fine, that you are safe right now in this moment. And that's one of the most powerful tools to get over this emotional dysregulation that caused the symptoms in the first place. It's recognizing that you don't always have to fight, you don't always have to resist, whether you're resisting a situation in your life or whether you're resisting your own body. That's even worse, because when you are trying to fight your own body, you're going to be in a constant state of fight or flight. You're going to be constantly dysregulated and guarded and feeling under threat. So this is why exercises like meditations and other somatic work can really, really help with these issues. With that said, I hope I've given you some ideas on how to approach these other non-painful symptoms. Remember, it's already amazing once you realize that this is a mind-body syndrome, that there's nothing wrong with you, okay? Because that paves the way forward towards accepting your body, towards building up that confidence that you can be okay and that things can change. So it's a process, it's a journey that I also detail in my Pain-Free Breakthrough program. It's a journey of emotional release, of coming back to your body, of coming back to life, of relating differently to your symptoms and to life. So it's various aspects are involved. It is possible. So many other people have done it before you. So don't get discouraged. Just choose your path and stick to it. That's all from me for today, and I wish you all a lovely week ahead. Bye-bye.